Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
A vicious murder of two defenseless children. Their mother awaits execution for the crime, but her family claims to have new evidence that proves her innocence. It has ghostly red eyes, enormous wings, and can reach speeds of over 100 miles per hour. What is a strange creature stalking the woods outside of Point Pleasant, Virginia? The hundreds who have seen it have given it a name, the Mothman. A modern-day Bonnie and Clyde are on the loose in the American West. Bank robbers by day, lovers by night. Maybe you can help end their crime spree. Join me for this intriguing edition of Unsolved Mysteries. Darlie Routier, a Rowlett, Texas housewife and mother of three, makes a harrowing call to 911. Within 5 minutes, the first police officer arrives. He walks into a scene of unbelievable bloodshed. Darlie's eldest son, Devin, just 3 days shy of his 7th birthday, is dead. 4 gaping knife wounds have ended his brief life. His brother, 5-year-old Damon, has also been savagely attacked with a knife. Damon gasps his last breath in the care of a paramedic. Darlie has a deep gash in her neck and wounds on her arms. She is immediately transported to a local hospital for emergency surgery and survives.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darlie Routier, guilty of the offense of
8 months
capital
later,
murder as
Darlie
charged in the
Routier
indictment.
is convicted of killing her 2 little boys. She is sentenced to die by lethal injection. It is a verdict that her mother, Darlie Key, will never accept.
I never thought that Darlie did this. Devin and Damon's killer is running free, and that's what this is about, the truth and finding justice for Devin and Damon. You know, I live my life every day for Darlie, and everything else has to come second because that's the most important thing is, we've got to save her life before they execute this innocent girl.
After her conviction, Darlie Routier agreed to be interviewed in the visiting room of the Gatesville State Prison. While behind bars, her bleached blonde hair has returned to its natural color.
I've been wrongfully convicted. I'm innocent. I've been done wrong. There has been a lot of terrible, wrong things that have been done to me and my family.
Darlie Routier was convicted of a crime that most of us find incomprehensible. But is she guilty? Unlike other high-profile cases of mothers killing their own children, Darlie has always proclaimed her innocence. Her mother and family have mounted a massive campaign to free Darlie, insisting that overlooked evidence exonerates her. A juror who voted to convict her is now convinced he made a mistake. But authorities argue that the case against Darlie is overwhelming. Join us as we examine both sides of this tragic story and judge for yourself if the true killer of Damon and Devin Routier is behind bars. When Darlie Lynn met Darren Routier 18 years ago, it was love at first sight. Within the next several years, Darlie and Darren were married and had 2 children, Damon and Devon. When Darlie was 26, she was blessed with a 3rd son whom she named Drake.
He's so cute.
It was only in the aftermath of Drake's birth that Darlie's usually cheerful mood darkened.
She did have a little bit of postpartum depression, and that pretty much, it was like maybe a 4-week period that she was kind of stressed and depressed. I didn't see any signs of depression at all after that small, short period of it after the baby.
Say hi, Diamond. Hi.
In fact, by all accounts, the Routiers were living the American dream. 3 beautiful children, a happy, healthy marriage, and a majestic house in an affluent suburb of Dallas. But in one night, the Routiers would lose it all. On June 6, 1996, Devon and Damon were murdered, and Darlie claims she was viciously attacked. Her youngest son, Drake, was unharmed.
Mrs. Routier, can you tell me anything at all about what happened?
Rowlett police detectives interviewed Darlie shortly after surgery while she was still sedated.
I was asleep on the couch, and when I woke up,
Darlie told investigators that on the night of the attack, she, Devon, and Damon had fallen asleep in the downstairs family room while watching TV. Her husband, Darren, slept upstairs with 8-month-old Drake. According to Darlie, at 2:30 a.m., she suddenly awoke and saw a man hovering over her with a knife.
And then she saw the back of the guy leaving the house, so she followed him, and when she went out the door, she saw the knife in the utility room. She picked it up to defend herself if he came back in.
Darlie told police that it was only then that she realized she was injured and her boys had been attacked.
Did you see anybody at all when you came down the stairs besides your wife?
Her husband, Darren, was also interviewed by Rowlett homicide detectives.
No, sir, no, sir. I hear this scream. I run down the stairs.
Oh, my God.
Darlie, at that point, is yelling, Devon, 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 Devon. She's just freaking. And I get to Devon, and he's got these 2 huge gashes in the top of his chest. He's laying face up, with, just blinking his eyes. And, I'm thinking CPR. I pop his head back. I start blowing into his mouth, and as soon as I blow into his mouth, air comes out of his chest. Blood splatters all over me. Not only have you just been woken up to the worst nightmare in your whole life, your child is dying in front of you, and you don't know what to do.
It's okay. Just take your time.
Investigators did not question Darren's account, but they were immediately troubled by several aspects of Darlie's story. How could she have slept through her attack and the children's murders? And why couldn't she give a clear description of her assailant?
Can you tell me what this person looked like?
no, sir.
Can you tell me?
When it came time to describe the so-called suspect, she was unable to describe the person, even though the person was supposedly kneeling or sitting, standing on top of her.
At the crime scene, investigators reportedly were not finding evidence to corroborate Darlie's version of events. They discovered the alleged entry and exit point of the killer, an open window in the garage that had its screen slashed. Yet there was an undisturbed layer of dust on the sill, suggesting that nobody actually came through it. Detectives also found a long bleached blonde hair in the cut screen. At the time, Darlie Routier had long bleached blonde hair. Police found nothing missing from the home and ruled out robbery as a motive. They also felt that the blood evidence did not support the story of an intruder.
The lack of a blood trail leading from the crime scene, continuing out the path that the intruder supposedly took, was problematic, to say the least. And this individual miraculously manages to keep any sense of blood or any evidence off of him, doesn't leave any footprints. All the blood's contained in one area. That was one of the things that, again, did not jive with her story.
A final strange clue was discovered in an alley 3 houses down from Darlie's home. A tube sock with small amounts of blood from the 2 murdered boys splattered on it.
One of the characteristics of cases where mothers are involved in the killing of children are that after the fact, there's a very amateuristic cover-up. I believe the sock is part of the cover-up. An amateuristic way of trying to throw the police off the trail.
I don't want to believe you did it, but all the evidence points that way.
A week and a half after the murders, Darlie was interrogated by a detective reportedly known for extracting confessions from suspects.
Were you pushed to the edge? Were you pushed to the limit?
Darlie stated that if she did it, she didn't, it being the murders, she didn't remember. Kind of a strange thing to say. The red flags started going up.
And not remember.
The detective who conducted the interview asserts that it was not recorded.
Got to say for yourself.
Darlie's family insists she never made the incriminating statement.
Should have been audio taped and videotaped. But yet on this high-profile case, he didn't have an audio tape or a videotape, which I think is a total lie. I think he has both. He just won't produce it because then it would prove that Darlie's telling the truth and that he's lying.
No one wants to believe that a mother would do something like this to their children. Even police officers don't want to believe that. But at some point, when you're presented with this type of overwhelming physical evidence, you have to start accepting some of it.
I never suspected that they were looking at Darlie. I thought at the hospital they were looking at Darren, but never Darlie. I mean, but they didn't know Darlie like I knew Darlie. And then on the news, there was breaking news, and it showed Darlene in handcuffs, and I started screaming and crying, and we went up to the Raleigh Police Department, and the lead detective was out there smoking a cigar and high-fiving all his detectives and told me to get the hell out of his police station, and, you know, just unbelievable.
Darlie Routier was charged with capital murder, incarcerated, and put on suicide watch. Attorneys and investigators hired to defend Darlie challenged the accusations. According to them, evidence used to secure the arrest warrant was hopelessly flawed.
When the officers examined the window which had been cut, they found there was no dust disturbed on the windowsill and also found a blonde hair stuck into the screen area. They assumed that blonde hair was Darlie's. Later, that hair, through DNA examination, was determined to belong to a Rowlett police officer. The windowsill is 10 inches off the floor. If you went through the window and crouched down and put one leg through the window, it's more probable you wouldn't disturb the dust than you would disturb the dust.
But the wheels of justice were already moving rapidly against Darlie Lynn Routier. Her bail was revoked, and the trial was transferred to Kirk County, a conservative community in south central Texas with a high rate of conviction and death penalty cases. Still, Darlie Lynn Routier held out hope that she would ultimately be vindicated.
You keep thinking that, you know, you're innocent, and you know, you keep waiting for them to come back and tell you that, oh, we've made a terrible mistake and we're so sorry, and you know, we found who did this. I just could not believe, you know, what was happening.
Darlie Lynn Routier, a young Dallas housewife, stood accused of viciously stabbing to death 2 of her children. Her trial began on January 6th under intense media scrutiny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen very carefully.
The prosecution opened their case by offering the state's theory of the crime. According to the state, Darlie Routier was a greedy, selfish, and vain woman whose extravagant lifestyle was being threatened by the responsibilities of motherhood. The prosecution insinuated that if her 2 boys were dead, Darlie could collect on their life insurance and resume her wild ways. The DA argued that Darlie, in the throes of postpartum depression, murdered 2 of her children, slit her own throat, and then tried to make it appear that an intruder had committed the crime.
And I know it sounds diabolical, but the evidence shows that she went...
They were crucifying her character to make this very conservative jury hate Darlie. And it was all a bunch of lies. If the children were interfering with her lifestyle, wouldn't you think it would be the newborn baby that would be the biggest problem? I mean, why would she kill 2 and not 3, and why wouldn't she kill the baby versus the 2 boys?
It's my opinion that the crime scene was staged, that the young...
A medical examiner testified that Darlie's wounds were superficial and self-inflicted.
Dramatically different than the wounds sustained by the young victims.
But the defense introduced medical records showing that the knife slash to Darlie's neck came within 1/16 of an inch of severing her carotid artery and killing her. Photographs taken at the hospital show extreme bruising on Darlie's arms.
But the notes that you took, that you were telling...
Darlie's defense attorney also attacked the prosecution's contention that she committed the murders to collect on her boy's life insurance policy.
Now, how long did you talk to Darlie Routier?
Why not kill her husband, who was insured for $800,000, far more than the small policies taken out on Damon and Devin?
They're trying to say she did this for the money. There's $5,000 life insurance on those boys. That's ridiculous. It costs $13,000 to bury them.
Your Honor, can we ask the witness to step down for a demonstration?
Well, when you are coming
The prosecution countered with a blood spatter expert. His testimony focused on a tiny blood stain on the back of Darlie's shirt. This spot contained both Devin and Damon's blood.
The shirt that Darlie was wearing, it had cast-off blood on the back over the shoulder area. And this would have come as the knife was being pulled out of the children's body and being brought over her shoulder and then dripping. And the analysis of the DNA indicated it belonged to the children. And that was a very important piece of evidence. How did that blood get there if not that manner?
All the blood evidence was handled by police officers that were not experienced with collecting evidence. And instead of drying that evidence, that bloody evidence out and putting it the proper way for storing for the trial, they threw it into bags and multiple pieces of blood on top of each other so that the blood stains could transfer from different areas.
We were very careful and methodical in our gathering of evidence. Our officers have been trained in it just like officers across the nation. We haven't just fallen off the hay wagon recently.
Do you recall any statement?
Ultimately, however, the prosecution moved away from the physical evidence and once again focused on their central thesis. Darlie Routier was an unfeeling, self-centered woman more than capable of murdering her own children. And to prove their point, they played this videotape for the jury. 8 days after the murders, the Routier family decided to celebrate Devin's 7th birthday posthumously. Having just been released from the hospital, Darlie was on painkillers, antibiotics, and antidepressants. A news crew captured what happened next.
This does not appear to be the behavior of a grieving mother. And all right, fine, let's discount it. She grieves differently than everybody else in the world. But what about all this other preponderance of evidence that's still out there? We can't ignore all the rest of it.
That was a celebration of Devin's birthday. We had everything ready to have his birthday. We had invitations sent out. We had the presents already bought. And he was murdered 3 days before we got to have his party. Now, some people might not choose to use silly string. We use silly string because Devin and Damon always played with silly string. It was one of their favorite things. It's done out of a memory of them. They twisted that and made that into something ugly. They made it into something that it completely wasn't.
We decided that the kids from the neighborhood that were invited to Devin's birthday could come up and that they could bring their gifts to Devin there. And I remember telling Darlene not to scare the kids, you know, because we were so hysterical at times that with little children around, you wouldn't want to be screaming and hollering and bawling and crying because you'd be terrifying those kids, you know. So it was not like it was real anyways. It was like we were in some sort of a dream.
During deliberations, the jury watched the so-called silly string video 8 times. It took them only 10 hours to reach a guilty verdict. Darlie Routier was immediately taken to death row at Gatesville State Prison.
Killed the boys?
I'm innocent.
But Darlie's family and attorneys are outraged by her conviction and are spearheading a drive to overturn the verdict. They claim that during the investigation and trial, crucial details were overlooked. Darlie's family contends that the photos of her extensive wounds were not properly presented to the jury. After the trial, one of the jurors who convicted Darlie, Charles Samford, had a chance to take a close look at the pictures.
After I saw the pictures, that made me feel that she's not guilty. She did not cut herself, and that she put up a heck of a fight to protect her own self. I believe with all my heart that Darlie Lynn Routier is innocent. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Darlie's defenders also point to the mysterious tube sock found 75 yards from the crime scene.
The sock contains both boys' blood and probably epithelial or skin DNA of Darlie. There are no blood stains that belong to Darlie on the sock. So it obviously had to be touched by someone after both boys had been stabbed who also had contact with Darlie.
According to Darlie's supporters, the tube sock makes the prosecution's account of the murders impossible. Medical testimony established that Damon, who didn't die until paramedics arrived, could not have lived for more than 9 minutes after receiving the fatal wound. Darlie was talking to a 911 operator for 5 minutes and 40 seconds of those 9 minutes. The police secured the scene for an additional 2 minutes before paramedics were allowed in. That leaves Darlie Routier approximately a minute and a half to place the sock down the street, stage a crime scene, and then cut her own throat.
I believe that the intruder had the sock on his hand, probably used as a glove or something, and I believe that he was covering her mouth. I don't believe she did sleep through it. I believe that she was asphyxiated. I believe that she was completely unconscious and then she became conscious. And during the time of her becoming conscious is when she says, "I woke up."
In addition, Darlie's family believes unidentified fingerprints at the crime scene will identify this intruder. A fingerprint on the door leading to the garage and a second print on the credenza behind the couch have never been positively ID'd by investigators.
They're not Darlie's, they're not Darren's, and they're not either of the two boys. Now, it may not be a problem in the sense that that's the end-all be-all of the case, but I think it shows the overall problems with the case. That the state did not investigate the case fully, that they focused on Darlie from not day one, but minute one.
As far as I'm concerned, it's the most important piece of evidence that we have to prove that Darlie Routier is innocent and that an intruder did come into my house and that man does exist and that he's walking free while my wife is on death row for something she didn't do.
But who would have murdered two innocent boys and stabbed Darlie? And why? Darlie's family believes the attack may have been a sexual assault gone awry. A series of violent rapes occurred in the Dallas area at the same time as the Routier murders. These crimes exhibited a striking similarity to the attack on Darlie and her children. The assailant entered the unlocked homes of victims, accosted them with knives found in the kitchen, and wore tube socks over his hands to avoid leaving fingerprints. Recently, a suspect has been arrested for the rapes. Darlie's supporters feel that authorities should consider the accused rapist a suspect in the Routier case. Rowlett police, however, have stated that no one has contacted them with any information indicating a connection between the two crimes. Today, Darlie and Darren's sole surviving son, Drake, is now 5 years old. Darlie was stripped of custody after the murders, and the boy now lives with Darren and his parents. For the past 4 years, Darlie's only contact with her child has been through a plate of bulletproof glass.
I feel like I've been cheated out on so much because I've missed all the first things that he's done. I've missed holding him at night. I've missed singing him to sleep, giving him a bath, wiping his face when it's dirty. All the things that you do when you're a mother, I've missed out on that. They've taken that from Drake. They've taken that from me.
Shortly after Darlie Routier's conviction, the official court transcript of her trial was found to contain more than 30,000 errors. Darlie's lawyers hope that this fact alone will sway the court to grant her a new trial. Unless her appeal is successful, Darlie Lynn Routier will die in the execution chamber at Gatesville State Prison. These crumbling buildings outside of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, are home to one of the most bizarre and terrifying creatures ever to walk the earth. Or some would have you believe.
I could see something standing there that looked like a man, but yet it wasn't a man. It was some kind of a creature.
Stood 7 feet tall or better, enormous glowing red eyes, bat-like wings, man-like legs.
That was the biggest, by far, and the ugliest bird, and I do mean bird, I've ever seen in my life. And I hope in this lifetime I never see it or anything like it again.
You have your percentage of citizens who feel that it was 101% a hoax, you know. I personally think that there was something up there that scared the wits out of most of the people who came face to face with it.
What is this strange creature? Countless theories have been offered, ranging from the far-fetched to the credible. But answers have remained elusive. Nevertheless, one thing is certain. Hundreds of ordinary people have seen something they cannot explain in the woods outside Point Pleasant, Virginia. They call it the Mothman. On November 15, 1966, Linda Scarberry, her husband, and another couple left Point Pleasant and headed for an area known as the TNT. Abandoned since World War II, the TNT got its nickname from once being a munitions factory. It was here that the Mothman would make its debut.
What is that? Oh my God, what the...
As they approached it, the headlights hit it, and the red eyes were prominent. It was a very huge creature with a wingspan estimated 8 to 10 to 12 feet.
As the Mothman let out a horrific screech, the two couples fled in a panic. Even though their car approached 100 miles per hour, it became apparent that they had not escaped.
As they drove off, the creature followed them from time to time, hitting the top of the car. It flew above the car, gliding from side to side, but never getting in front of the car. And as they approached the lights of the city, the creature backed off and fled.
But the Mothman sightings were only beginning. The next day, Marcella Bennett left her brother's house with her 4-year-old daughter after a short visit.
When I got to the car and reached for the door handle, then I saw what looked like legs. I kept going up, looking from the feet up. And when I did, I could see that I was looking at something that I had never saw before.
Come back in the house! Oh my God!
What the creature was something that looked like a man, but it was over 6 foot tall, and it had feathers instead of skin. The way it looked, I mean, it was something I never, in my wildest imagination, would have ever thought that would be standing out there. Just unbelievable.
Oh my God. Be quiet now.
Then, as quickly as it appeared, the Mothman vanished. A few days later, Tom Urey was driving near the TNT area. He is one of the few people to have seen the Mothman in the clear light of day.
I caught something out of the corner of my eye. It looked like a helicopter coming over the trees at first. Until I saw it, it was a bird, a huge bird, that proceeded to circle my car, making big loops. But every time it would make a loop, it would get lower, lower, lower. And I'm getting a little bit scared, you know, this thing's curious about my car, and I sure didn't want to be breakfast. And then it made a loop back to the left and went back over the riverbank. And I went on to Mason, West Virginia, and called the Sheriff's Department in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Over the next year, sightings of the Mothman increased in frequency. The descriptions of the creature were eerily similar. Part man, part bird with huge wings and hypnotic red eyes. The national media descended on the small town. Thousands swarmed into the TNT area, hoping to catch a glimpse of the Mothman.
It was a sheer pandemonium. The world had focused its attention on Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The press was everywhere, and everyone just seemed to be on edge, just waiting to see what the outcome of the sightings would be.
As everybody searched for the Mothman, other weird occurrences began.
Residents of Point Pleasant would go out on farms and find their animals dead, and maybe just the blood out or the heart going. Someone had removed the heart of the animal.
The town also began to receive visits from enigmatic strangers. Their penchant for dressing in black from head to toe has earned them the nickname the Men in Black.
The Men in Black were strange, out-of-town visitors who seemed to want to pretty much just quiet everything down. They would show up in people's doorsteps and show up at their house at night and basically just say, hey, you know, let's just keep quiet for now. And they terrified a lot of the original witnesses.
Who were these odd strangers? Some believe they may hold the answer to the Mothman mystery.
One of the theories is that the Mothman was a government experiment gone awry and it escaped, which would explain a little bit of the Men in Black. A lot of people tied all that in with the government as a government experiment.
Others believe that there is a more logical explanation for the rash of sightings. Eyewitnesses were actually seeing a large bird, specifically the sandhill crane, indigenous to the area.
Well, the sandhill crane stands nearly as tall as a man and has two red patches of flesh that under extraordinary circumstances might be mistaken for red eyes. That's the basic reason why the sandhill crane theory came up. But none of the rest of the bird fits the description, not even close.
One final theory focuses on the region where most of the Mothman sightings occurred, the TNT. The area was originally a bird sanctuary. World War II brought the mass production of armaments to the region, along with immense pollution.
One of the theories is that the Mothman is a mutant bird which was created from the TNT residue left over from the plants during the World War II effort and combined with the genes of the animals during 1966 and formed a mutant bird type creature.
Whatever the explanation, the Mothman terrified all who saw it. And some even believe that the creature is somehow linked to the greatest tragedy ever to befall Point Pleasant. After nearly a year of sightings, a silver bridge leading out of town collapsed, killing 46 people. One witness claimed to have seen the Mothman on the bridge just prior to the disaster. A debate has raged ever since about whether the Mothman somehow played a role.
The Silver Bridge collapse was attributed more to a structural fault in the metal. Most of the key witnesses don't feel that the Mothman sighting had anything to do with the collapse of the Silver Bridge.
Today, the bridge has been rebuilt. Although Mothman sightings have virtually stopped, thousands still travel each year to Point Pleasant with the hopes of spying the mysterious creature. Books have been written and a major motion picture made. Real or not, the Mothman is more famous now than ever.
The Mothman has always been there, and it'll always be there. It'll never go away. It's a legend. It's a local legend, and now it's a worldwide legend. It'll never fade away.
The Klamath First Federal Bank in Bend, Oregon is just seconds from closing. Bank teller Rhonda Dent looks forward to a serene evening at home with her husband and 4 children.
Get your hands up! You, this is a freaking joke. Get over there. You two, out from behind the counter now!
He took control and he scared us. He intimidated us.
I'll freaking kill you, lady.
Just your keys.
Shut up. You lock the front door. Move it. You better hope he doesn't push a button, because you're the one I'm gonna kill.
There was no thought in anybody's mind of trying to set an alarm off. So he made us all go into the vault, and then he had me fill the bags. After I was done doing that, he told me to go over and get on my knees. And he tied me up. I was scared. I was terrified at that point because I thought he's gonna shoot us all.
Coming out, are we clear?
To Rhonda's relief, the armed thief harms no one. The professionally executed robbery is just one of 12 perpetrated by 2 elusive partners in crime. 2 lawless lovers still on the loose. The names are Craig Pritchard and Nova Guthrie, but they become known as a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. Over the past 4 years, they made off with over $500,000. They conduct the robberies with military precision and vanish to live the high life among the wealthy. Perhaps you can help bring their good times and their spree of terror to an end. Craig Pritchard once seemed destined to gain fame of a whole different kind. A baseball scholarship at Arizona State University was to be his ticket to a bright future.
Craig was a rising star. He was doing very well, and I'm sure he probably projected himself to be in the majors, probably making a lot of money at some point in time. But Barry Bonds came along and was offered a scholarship to ASU, and once Barry Bonds got there, Craig pretty much was sitting on the bench or was in the shadows, if you will.
I think that was devastating to him, and he had these high career aspirations of making a lot of money and didn't have any means to do it. I think that led to a quick, immediate gratification, which was bank robbery.
Craig Pritchard's lust for the quick score led him to Las Vegas. Not to the casinos, but straight to the banks. Over the next several years, he committed an unknown number of robberies. In 1992, his luck ran out. A bank teller identified him in a lineup. He was arrested and convicted and sentenced to 5 years in an Arizona penitentiary.
5 years is a long time to spend in prison, and he met other people that had robbed banks. And from past experience of cases I've worked, they exchanged thoughts, ideas, way to perfect robbing a bank better the next time.
He actually learned how to commit bank robberies in a better way than he had previously.
There's a couple of tricks that I can show you.
In New Mexico, shortly after his release, Craig met 24-year-old Nova Guthrie.
Hey.
They did have dinner, and they hit it off. Sparks were flying. They were very mutually attracted to each other.
I'll take you out.
I think I could stay a couple of more days.
And within a week or so, Craig had moved in with Nova.
Nova Guthrie comes from a very small town, and she was raised in a very strict, conservative, very spiritual family setting. And I think she's not had much excitement in her life until she met Pritchard. Well, after meeting, they went on a bank robbery spree, and that included the states of Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Washington, Oregon, across the South and Northwest.
Let's go, come on.
Pritchard would enter the bank wearing a disguise. He was always armed with an assault weapon. He had a police scanner so he could monitor any of the police in the area.
In the getaway car, Nova alerts Craig to any dangers via radio. After each robbery, they drive to a pre-designated location to abandon their car. They transfer to a second vehicle and flee the area.
They're kind of natural-born rule breakers. They love a challenge. And what's more thrilling than robbing a bank in broad daylight? And my guess is that after these robberies, you know, it's into bed. It's a thrill. It's exciting. They just want to keep the thrill going.
In between the robberies, there were sightings of them really leading a very lavish lifestyle. They liked to frequent nice places, the ski resorts, ocean resort areas. They look like a very nice, normal couple. There is nothing that's going to stand out that is going to make them different from others.
2 years into their crime spree, Craig and Nova risk capture by visiting Nova's family in Phoenix. At the time, however, Nova was unaware that only Craig was a wanted fugitive. The FBI had no evidence linking her to the robberies. But Nova's family resented Craig for enticing her to a life of crime.
Hey, Craig. Beer? Nah. I just want to talk to you outside for a minute.
Nova's brother confronted Craig.
What's going on?
You're leaving right now. You're gonna get in your fancy little car.
He didn't like what he had done and what he had gotten Nova involved with.
Go.
And he didn't want her to be any part of Nova's life.
Nova, he's gone.
Without Craig, Nova was uncertain what to do next. Confused and contrite, she heeded her sister's advice to meet confidentially with police chaplain William Fay.
So what is it you want to tell me? I think deep in her heart she wanted to be forgiven but didn't know how to go about it.
I think I'm in trouble.
And at that point I took my Bible and I began to share scripture with her. I said, what do you think it is now that God would have you do? Nova said, turn myself in. I said, let's go.
We interviewed Nova Guthrie, and she provided information regarding her involvement in the bank robberies and just the manner in which they were committed. We didn't arrest Nova at that point in time because we had not done any investigation to corroborate her story, and we had insufficient probable cause to have the United States Attorney's Office authorize on an arrest warrant.
The FBI hoped that with Nova's help, they could bring Craig to justice. But after her surprising choice to cooperate, she made an equally astonishing turnabout. She disappeared, back to a life of crime with Craig Pritchard.
When she first went with Craig, she didn't quite realize what a big decision she had made. She had second thoughts about it, stepped back from the brink, and then realized, it's boring back here. I'm going back to the brink. And that's what she did.
I've read publications where Nova and Craig have been called the modern-day Bonnie and Clyde and tried to romanticize it, if you will. I don't buy it personally. I don't think it's romantic if you walk in and stick a gun in someone's face from 2 feet and you threaten them.
Look, I will freaking kill you, lady!
Just because they haven't shot anyone and they haven't used their weapons doesn't mean that people aren't getting hurt. You take a look at the victims and the victim tellers specifically, it's very traumatic for them.
You know, I'd like to tie him up and stick a gun in his face. I'd like to have him feel that same helpless feeling, being terrified for your life, thinking that you're gonna die.
Join me for more stories that challenge the mind and the imagination on the next edition of Unsolved Mysteries.